Now, the other night, I had a very interesting conversation with someone, and I'm not going to name their name here because I don't want them to be caught in the crosshair here. But the question was, and we debated about this for a good while, is $1 million, pounds, whatever's relative in your currency, is it a lot of money? And, they obviously, from my reaction, as you can see, said no. What do I think? Fuck yes. That is a bucket load of fucking money. That is life changing money. And I'm going to talk about that in a second here as well. And I can quote you something that they said. They said verbatim, word for word, that £1 million, which is where I'm from because we're talking about UK money, and they said that is startup money. It is startup money. That is crazy. That is so wacky. That makes my fucking head spin. And if you're watching this, which I know you are, you're so out of touch. And you know you're out of touch because I told you you're out of touch. And I don't mean this personally. They know that I'm taking this as a joke. It was a nice conversation that we had and everything, but how anyone can think that is startup money is crazy to me. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that with £1 million, I'm going to be a fucking superstar. I'm going to fuck 7 women in one night and then drive off in my fucking super yacht like I'm Conor McGregor. Like, I don't think that. You're not going to live a life of pure, unadulterated luxury like you've got a fucking Lamborghini hanging off the roof like you're Andrew Tate or something. Like, none of that's going to happen. You're not going to live a life of super luxury where you can afford anything in the world. That's not going to happen. But when we're talking about stuff like this and earning this amount of money, I think you have to take the general population into account. And if you're taking the general population, majority of people just earn a normal living wage. Like, I don't know, in the UK, minimum wage is somewhere between 20 to 25,000 pounds a year. And if you have £1 million, that will completely change your life. Now, one of the first points they made is, what's your definition of life changing? Because if you buy a 50K car, your life has changed. Bullshit. That is that is not a proper counter to that argument. I get what they're trying to say. If you buy a better car, yes, your life has changed. But my definition of life changing is that majority, if not every single area of your life, has changed. For example, if you buy a car, only your travel part of your life has changed. At that point, it's not life changing. But if you have £1 million, you can afford things like a house, which is probably the thing you're going to spend the most amount of money on in terms of any asset that you can buy, in terms of clothing, cars, whatever. The most expensive thing that you're going to spend on is probably going to be a house. So with that type of money, you can buy a house, you can buy a car. If you're in America, you can probably save up to send your children to college or university or whatever the fuck you save money up for. And even after buying all that, you probably don't have to worry about your bills for your house for a good couple of years. And again, this is all assuming that someone still works. And in fact, even if you didn't work, you can. In fact, let's do some calculations right now. So at the price of £650,000, you can buy a semi-detached house in pretty much the center of London. This is pretty much like a 10-20 minute drive into the center of London. You could buy a semi-detached house with 4-bed terrace, 2 baths, and 2 receptions. Then if you want to buy a car, and by no means do I know anything about cars, but just a quick Google search for a 2014 car, I found this new Grandland electric Vauxhall family car. This is if you have a family, for £39,000. Now let's say you have 3 children and all of them are going to university here in the UK. And you know what? As a good person that you are, you want to pay for all of their university tuition fees. So when they go into the working world and they get that final paycheck at the end of the month, nothing is being deducted from it. You've paid for it because you've just earned £1 million. If you were to pay for all of those 3 children to go to just 3 years of university, which is a standard university degree, it's just the 3 years, you'd be paying £85,000 towards that thing. Now, let's go even further. Let's say you wanted to put money aside for the next 2 years for bills, food, and anything that there is to do with the house. Let's put £1,000 towards all of that. That seems like a good amount. It's not overshooting it, it's not undershooting it. You would then put £24,000 toward that as well. So adding the house, adding the car, adding paying for your children's tuition fee towards university, and paying for bills and food for the next 2 years, you would still have £200,000 left into your bank account. That's crazy. Do you know what you can do with that amount of money? You could start a small business. That is a sensational amount of money to invest in if you enjoy crypto, if you enjoy putting stuff into the stock market, for anything like that. If you had any ambitions or anything for life, let's say you get that £1 million and all you want to do is buy the things you want to buy in your life and then go back to your normal job. With £200,000, you can go and explore the world. You can buy a great setup to start your YouTube channel. You can do so much money. £1 million completely changes your life. And saying the argument of, oh well, if you buy a car or something like that, that technically changes your life. It doesn't. When someone says something changes your life, it changes multiple facets, if not every facet of your life. And there's probably some things that I'm forgetting about. Maybe in America, you have to pay for stuff like healthcare. Hell, even if you have to pay for healthcare and everything that there has to do with America or whatever, there's still a lot of money. And also, I think there's something that I forgot to mention when people say, oh, what about taxes? This £1 million or thing, hypothetically, in this conversation that we're having, is not taxed. You just have £1 million. It's the £1 million is all yours in your account. Anything you earn from working in your normal job, whatever, that gets taxed like normal. But the £1 million is just raw. That's a raw £1 million or dollars you have in your account. In fact, I did a little bit more digging on the internet and in my little brain here because I remember another thing that they said, which is if you were to buy a house and you wanted to renovate it, you wouldn't have enough money to buy and renovate the house. To that, I say nay. So I don't know how 100% legit this website is, but it was the first one I saw and it seems, good enough to use. And I have some prices right here. So let's say you wanted to fucking rebuild your house from the fucking ground up. Like you don't even want to recognize that house. You want it to look completely different. So I've added every single expenditure here. For something like kitchen, I added 20K because it says 10K plus. So I just doubled the price in case you really want that kitchen to look fucking amazing. Like you want to fuck Margot Robbie there right over the counter. Like you want supermodels over at your house here. So I put 20K for that. In the double glazing window, I put 30 windows. So I times it by 30, which gave me roughly around about 18K to put aside for that. Damp, I put 16K right up there to the top. So everything I could pay for the most of, I paid for the most of. And the price came to, and if you kept your peepers peeled there in that little screenshot that I showed you, I also added the 10% that you should keep aside in case for any extra costs that they want to add to it. So I added all of that up, and it still comes out to 190,000. Even if you had that 200,000 left, you would still have £10,000 left into your bank account. That's half of your salary if you're on minimum wage. You can completely alter your life, go balls to the fucking wall with renovating your whole house, and still have 10K left. Does that still not go through your brain? How mind-bogglingly £1 million is? That is crazy. The second point I wanted to debunk was when they said that, well, if you give that £1 million to someone, they'd be able to burn it like this. There's a lot of instances where people have won the lottery, for example, and they've just spent the money. I know there was one story where someone spent it in about 8 months, just going out partying, buying a lot of stupid shit, and was just broke. And there's a lot of cases of people who win the lottery and are just broke at the end of it. But to that I say nay. That is a bad player. That's bad gameplay right there. That doesn't mean that the £1 million is small. Just because it's something easy to spend or easy to get rid of, which spending it relentlessly for 8 months, and it still takes 8 months to spend that £1 million. That's still a lot of fucking money. But anyway, that's besides the point. If you're playing a game, a shooter game, for example, and you have this one character that has a semi-automatic gun and one measly shot kills you, and no other character does that, that by definition is an overpowered character. It's a character that is very strong within the game. Now, if you have like my mother, for example, I'm sorry, mom, I'm throwing her under the bus here, who is not that great at games, not that great at shooters, and she's fucking missing bullets, spraying it fucking everywhere. Someone, an innocent person got hit over there by a bullet. That's how bad she is at this game. Does that mean that the character's bad? Because now we have one bad player playing as the character? No, the character is still objectively good. You just have someone bad playing the character. Same thing with the money. £1 million is still a lot of fucking money to use. But the difference is you just have someone who's not very good at using that money, if that makes sense. So that argument, I think, just falls apart completely by itself. Now, there are some other points that I wanted to mention, but I'll mention one last one because I don't want to get too deep into this. I think you all get the point that I'm trying to make. The third argument that they made is that there's a lot of money in the world. And one of the examples that they tried to give was Nvidia. Nvidia is worth like something like $3 trillion, $4 trillion or something like that. And that's his point that he was making. He was like, there's so much money in the world. Look how much money is there. £1 million is measly. And yeah, £1 million is measly to $3 trillion. But there are two things that just aren't comparable. First of all, Nvidia is a company. It's a company run by a lot of fucking people, and a company that was worked from the ground up for a lot of years. When you're thinking of that $3 trillion, there's money going into research, money going into development, money going into staff, money going into cleaners, money going into construction, money going into infrastructure, money going into so many other things. So that it's not just $3 trillion that some fat guy sitting there like that guy from Breaking Bad, where he's just sitting on top of the money, like, oh, this money is fucking great. That's not all. That's not all liquid money. It's divided into so many different sectors. And again, it is a corporate business. If you were to take that corporate business and compare it to Amazon, compare it to, I don't know, something like Netflix or these all these other companies, it starts to look pretty average. And if anything, it's not even the top dog. It's probably like third or fourth of the richest corporations out in the world. But if you were to take you and compare it to every other normal single person, because you're receiving a single £1 million, it's probably comparable. You're comparing a big company with $3 trillion, and you're comparing a normal single person with $1 million. Yes, there's going to be people out there richer than you, just like there's going to be companies richer than Nvidia. But still, objectively, a million is a lot of money. Just because you say, well, there's more out there, such Dragon Ball mentality. Well, Goku's strong, but there's always stronger. Oh, come back for the next arc right here. I don't understand that logic. Now, I'm going to reiterate, I don't think you're going to be living a life of luxury. I don't think you're going to get your super yacht. I don't think you're going to buy like a Drake mansion. Like, none of that's going to happen. But if you are just a regular person, the person working at minimum wage, maybe you're working at your local retailer or something, that will completely change your life. You will be able to afford a house. You'll be able to afford maybe your first car. You'll be able to pay off your whole student tuitions, and you'll still have money left. You want to buy your mom a nice little flat. Maybe it's not the house you dreamed of buying her, but you want to buy her a flat while you buy yourself a house. Do it. You probably have the money for it. You have the money for so many things. And someone thinking that, yes, just because you aren't living that life of luxury, that you could with even more money, that £1 million isn't a lot. It is. It's a lot of money. Anyway, I want to know what you guys think. Maybe this is a discussion that we can have. Who knows? Maybe it's going to be a civil war where one side's going to be like, that's a lot of money. You guys are out of touch. And the other side's going to be like, you're just all broke beta cucks. That's not enough money. And maybe we should all just be earning six figures every month. Who knows? Anyway, that's the end of this discussion. Thank you. Bye.